the underestimated species in the vast expanse of the galaxy. Earth was often seen as an insignificant speck to the mighty empires of the stars. It was nothing more than a primitive planet, full of weak creatures struggling to survive. The galaxy's dominant species laughed at the thought of humanity ever being a threat. The humans were trapped in constant wars on their planet, plagued by poverty and chaos. How could a species like that ever challenge the great empires that ruled the stars? For centuries, Earth had been overlooked, ignored, and forgotten, while the alien empires advanced, building fleets of unstoppable warships and exploring the furthest reaches of space. Humanity was left to struggle with its own problems. They had no advanced technology, no spacefaring capabilities, and no allies in the galaxy. They were just another species on a lonely planet, living out their days without ever imagining they could make a difference in the grand scheme of things. But there was one thing the galaxy had underestimated: humanity's will to survive. When the first alien ships arrived on Earth, no one knew what to expect. They came with advanced technology, their ships gleaming with power and mystery. To the humans, these visitors from the stars were a terrifying sight. Some believed the aliens had come to help, others feared they had come to conquer. But no one knew how to respond to these powerful beings who had suddenly appeared in their skies. The alien visitors, however, saw Earth's people as weak. Their ships hovered over the cities, watching the humans from a distance, studying them like animals in a zoo. To the aliens, humanity was an interesting but ultimately unimportant species. They could crush the humans with ease, they thought. They believed they could control Earth's resources, take whatever they wanted, and leave without facing any real resistance. At first, the humans were afraid. They had no way to fight back against such advanced technology. The first interactions between humans and aliens were tense, filled with confusion and fear. The aliens offered Earth a gift: advanced technology they claimed would help humanity. They believed they were doing the humans a favor, giving them just enough to survive. After all, the aliens saw themselves as the superior species, and they didn't believe a simple, backward planet like Earth could ever challenge them. What the aliens didn't know was that humanity's greatest strength was its ability to adapt. The humans had always been resourceful. When faced with a problem, they found a way to solve it, no matter how difficult the challenge. They had done it for centuries on their own planet, fighting for survival against nature, against each other, and now against a far superior force. Instead of accepting the aliens' technology without question, the humans began to study it. At first, they didn't understand it, but they didn't give up. They took the scraps, the broken pieces of technology left behind by the aliens, and started experimenting. In small workshops across Earth, engineers and scientists worked tirelessly, trying to unlock the secrets hidden within the alien devices. They weren't sure what they would find, but they knew one thing: they couldn't afford to sit back and wait for the aliens to decide their fate. Humanity was no stranger to struggle. It had always been an underdog, always fighting for its survival. And now, with the technology in their hands, they had a chance to show the galaxy that they were more than just a weak, insignificant species. As weeks turned into months, the first signs of progress became clear. Humans began to reverse engineer the alien technology. It wasn't easy, but they were making breakthroughs. Pieces of technology once thought to be useless were turned into something far more powerful. They took what the aliens had given them, broke it apart, and rebuilt it stronger, more efficient, and most importantly, adapted for human use. The alien empires were still watching, unaware of the changes happening on Earth. To them, humanity was still the same primitive species they had observed in the beginning: weak, helpless, and incapable of doing anything more than surviving. But they were wrong. The humans were not just surviving. They were learning, adapting, and building something that would change everything. One day, after months of secret work, humanity revealed its creation, the first warship built from the alien technology. It was small at first, but powerful beyond anything the galaxy had seen. The ship was a symbol of humanity's ability to take scraps and turn them into something deadly. It was a sign that humanity was no longer a weak species waiting to be controlled. They had found a way to defend themselves. When the aliens saw the warship, their confidence shattered. They had underestimated humanity, thinking that their advanced technology and powerful fleets would intimidate Earth. But now, the humans had a weapon of their own, one that could take on the galaxy's most powerful empires, and they didn't stop at just one warship. Humanity had tasted the power they had built from nothing, and they were eager to see just how far they could push their new abilities. The galaxy had always assumed that Earth was a helpless species, nothing more than a weak planet full of simple creatures. But now, that perception was changing. Slowly but surely, humanity was proving them all wrong. They had been underestimated, but soon, the galaxy would know what it meant to face an enemy that refused to back down. The humans had shown that they were not weak. They had shown the galaxy that they were capable of far more than anyone could have imagined. And this was just the beginning. A world on the brink. Galaxy's reaction to humanity's new warship was swift and unforgiving. Earth's first true weapon, crafted from the remnants of alien technology, had caught the attention of every major empire in the galaxy. What had once been a quiet, insignificant planet was now on the radar of every powerful civilization. The alien species that had initially underestimated humanity were now forced to confront the reality of their mistake. Humanity, it seemed, was not to be dismissed. On Earth, the mood was a mixture of awe and fear. The warship had proven that the humans could stand up to the galaxy's greatest forces. But its creation had come at a great cost. The project had drained Earth's resources and required the collective efforts of some of the world's brightest minds. Entire cities had been repurposed to accommodate the warship's construction. Scientists and engineers worked in secret, hidden from the watchful eyes of the alien empires that had been keeping track of Earth's every move. But despite the progress, humanity knew they could not afford to be complacent. The alien fleets were already on their way. Sensing that Earth had become a dangerous new player, the Vixer, who had once believed that Earth's technological backwardness would make it an easy target, were now on high alert. Their confidence in their own superiority was fading. What had once been a quiet planet on the edge of the galaxy was now a focal point for the most powerful forces in existence. While Earth's leaders held meetings behind closed doors, debating whether to fight or seek diplomacy, one thing was clear: humanity had already crossed a line. They had proven to the galaxy that they were no longer content with being a passive species. They had shown that they could take alien technology, break it down, and turn it into something far more dangerous than anyone had ever anticipated. The warship was only the beginning, and the rest of the galaxy would have to adjust to the fact that Earth was no longer a weak, vulnerable planet. It was a rising power. The question now was whether humanity could hold onto its newfound strength. The Vixer, along with other empires, would surely retaliate. But the humans were not the same species they had been when the aliens first arrived. They had learned, adapted, and grown stronger. Now, with the power of their warship at their disposal, they were ready to face whatever came next. But even as humanity prepared for battle, they knew they couldn't do it alone. The first signs of an alliance began to form. As the Vixer and other empires began to rally against Earth, smaller, less powerful civilizations that had suffered under the rule of the galaxy's empires began to take notice. There were whispers of a new coalition forming, one that could stand against the tyranny of the galaxy's most powerful forces. Humanity had become a symbol of resistance, and they would not be alone in their struggle. The humans, however, were cautious. They had been betrayed before, and they knew that trust in the galaxy was a fragile thing. Every alliance came with a cost. They needed to be sure that the civilizations offering to stand with them were not simply looking for a way to use Earth's newfound power for their own gain. The galaxy had once viewed humanity as weak, a species on the edge of extinction, but now, Earth had become the center of the galaxy's attention. And the question on everyone's mind was no longer could humanity survive, but how far will humanity go to prove they belong in the galaxy? As the days passed, tensions grew. The humans knew that their warship alone would not be enough to protect them from the full might of the Vixer and the other empires. It was time to act, to take the fight to their enemies before they could strike first. Humanity had proven their ability to build from nothing, and now they would have to show the galaxy just how far they were willing to go to secure their place among the stars. In the hearts of Earth's leaders and soldiers alike, a single thought burned brightly. This was humanity's moment to rise. The galaxy had underestimated them, but now they would see that Earth was not a planet to be ignored or conquered. Earth was a force to be reckoned with, and no matter how powerful the empires of the galaxy were, humanity would stand tall, ready to defend their future. The countdown to the galaxy's first true confrontation with humanity had begun. The universe would soon learn that Earth, once seen as a simple, helpless planet, had become the galaxy's most formidable new power, and when the dust settled, the galaxy would never be the same again. The revelation silence in the galaxy was deafening. After the initial shockwave of humanity's warship, the powerful fleets of the galaxy's most dominant empires paused, unsure of what to do next. Earth had become a question mark in the grand scheme of the universe. For centuries, the galaxy had been a place of predictability where the strong ruled and the weak obeyed. Now, everything was uncertain. The appearance of humanity's warship was a declaration of promise that Earth would no longer be a passive participant in the galaxy's politics, but the Vixer, who had been the first to miscalculate humanity's potential, were the most vocal in their reaction, furious at their underestimation of the humans. They quickly organized a massive fleet, the largest they had ever assembled, and set their sights on Earth. The Centauri Empire, ruthless and powerful, also began to move their fleets toward Earth's orbit. They had always been a force of destruction, and they viewed humanity's rise as a direct challenge to their dominance. Meanwhile, Earth's leaders met in secret behind locked doors, working with urgency to prepare for the coming war. They knew the warship had only given them a temporary advantage. They needed more. Humanity needed to show that this wasn't just a fluke, that they were capable of defending themselves, not only from the Vixer but from every empire that would inevitably turn against them. If they were to stand any chance, Earth would need more ships, more technology, and most importantly, more allies. In response, a call went out to the galaxy, small, forgotten species, those who had suffered under the tyrannical rule of the Vixer. The Khazark and the Centauri began to respond. These were the quiet civilizations, the ones that had been crushed by the galaxy's empires and never had the strength to fight back. But now they saw in humanity a beacon of hope. They knew the Vixer's tyranny had no limits, and humanity, as small as it was, had just proven that they could do the unthinkable. It didn't matter that the humans had come from a small, insignificant planet. They were fighting for survival, and the galaxy respected that. Among these new allies was the Andorian race, once a mysterious and aloof species. The Andorians had watched Earth's rise from a distance. At first, they thought humanity would be crushed like all the others, just another lost cause in the galaxy's brutal history. But the Andorians had underestimated humanity too. When they saw what Earth had done with just scraps of alien technology, they realized the humans were something different. So they extended a hand of friendship, offering not only their advanced biotechnology but their support in the coming war. The humans, while still cautious, knew that this was the opportunity they needed. The Andorians were not as trustworthy as they seemed, but at least they understood what it meant to fight for freedom. Humanity needed all the help they could get, and the Andorians offered more than just a simple alliance. They offered knowledge, new weapons, and advanced medical technology that could heal the war-torn world. But Earth's leaders knew they had to tread carefully. The galaxy had seen the power of the Andorians, and they also knew that the Andorians had their own agenda. If Earth accepted their help, they would have to ensure that the Andorians didn't take advantage of them, just as the Vixer had. Yet, even as they accepted the Andorians' offer, humanity couldn't afford to wait. They needed to act fast. The Vixer were already on their way. They would arrive in less than a week, their fleet bearing down on Earth with terrifying speed. The humans, for the first time in history, were preparing to meet the full might of the galaxy's most powerful empire head-on, and so, with new allies at their side, humanity began to build. They rebuilt their warship into something far greater, no longer just a single vessel, but a symbol of their strength. They began producing new ships using the knowledge provided by the Andorians and their own ingenuity. Every human on Earth, from engineers to soldiers, worked together to create a fleet that could stand against the overwhelming power of the Vixer. As Earth prepared for its first true battle against the galaxy's most feared empires, the humans understood one crucial thing: they had already won. No longer would they be looked down upon as weak. No longer would they be considered just another planet in the galaxy's distant corner. The humans had done something no one thought was possible. They had taken scraps and turned them into something far more powerful. They had shown the galaxy that they were not afraid to stand up and fight, and no matter what happened next, humanity's name would be remembered across the stars. The galaxy would never be the same again. The first test moment of truth had arrived. The combined fleets of the Vixer and the Centauri were on their way to Earth, each empire bringing their full might to crush the humans once and for all. Their warships, colossal and menacing, moved toward Earth's atmosphere with overwhelming speed. The humans had only recently built their warship, one ship, against entire fleets of the galaxy's deadliest forces. It seemed like an impossible fight. But for the first time, Earth's leaders were not afraid. They were ready. Humanity had done the unthinkable. They had taken scraps and turned them into a deadly weapon, a warship that could stand toe-to-toe with the greatest fleets in the galaxy. Now, Earth's leaders stood on the precipice of a new era. They knew they couldn't rely on just one ship to win this battle. But humanity's will to fight had never been stronger. The warship wasn't their only advantage, it was a symbol of what they could achieve when united. And united, they were fighting not just for survival but for their future in the stars. The first wave of the Vixer fleet arrived. It's massive, ships cutting through space with ease, their weapons ready to strike. The humans, however, were prepared. Earth's military forces, bolstered by the Andorians' advanced technology and their own innovations, had equipped their warship with new, deadly weaponry. Every piece of technology, every scrap of alien technology that had been repurposed, had now been made into something much more powerful. And this time, it wasn't just one ship. Humanity had a small but capable fleet, ready for war. As the first shots were fired, the galaxy watched in shock. The Vixer, with all their might, fired massive energy blasts at the humans' defenses. The humans retaliated with their new weapons, firing back with precision. The warship, once just a symbol of humanity's ingenuity, now proved to be the galaxy's most advanced weapon. It tore through the alien warships with incredible speed and power, the energy shields flickering with every hit as the humans pressed on. Despite their advanced technology, the Vixer were unprepared for the ferocity of humanity's response. Their fleets, once thought to be unbeatable, were beginning to falter. The human fleet, though smaller, was swift and relentless. Every time the Vixer tried to regroup, the humans struck again. The battle raged across space, each side suffering heavy losses. But it quickly became clear, humanity was not only surviving, they were pushing the Vixer back. For the first time, the galaxy's most powerful empire realized they had underestimated humanity. The Vixer commanders were forced to issue an emergency retreat, unable to withstand the force of the human warships. The humans had done what many thought impossible. They had forced the Vixer to pull back. But the victory came at a great cost. Humanity's warship had taken heavy damage in the battle, and Earth's fleet had lost several ships in the conflict. The cost of victory was clear. The humans had won the first battle, but the war was far from over. The Centauri were still coming, and their fleets were even more massive than the Vixers. The humans knew that the hardest battles were yet to come, but they had proven something to the galaxy, something that would change the course of history. The humans had shown they could stand up to the greatest forces in the galaxy, and they would not back down. The Vixer had retreated, but the galaxy was still filled with enemies who would not take this defeat lightly. The victory against the Vixer was just the beginning of a larger struggle now. With the Centauri preparing to make their move, humanity had to decide what kind of future they wanted. Would they retreat in fear, or would they rise once more to fight for their place in the galaxy? As Earth's leaders regrouped, they knew one thing for certain: the humans were no longer weak. The Vixer had been forced to retreat, but now the galaxy's other empires would be watching. The Centauri were coming, and this time, humanity had to be ready for their most dangerous adversary yet. The first test had been passed, but humanity knew that the real war was just beginning. The galaxy in Kao's first victory was exhilarating, but the reality soon set in. Earth's military had succeeded in pushing back the Vixer, but the cost had been steep. The warship, once pristine and shining with the promise of humanity's strength, was now battered, its hull scarred from battle. Yet, despite the damage, it stood as a testament to humanity's ability to adapt, learn, and survive. But now, the true test awaited. The Vixer might have retreated, but the Centauri, humanity's next great enemy, were closing in. The Centauri were a race born of war, their empire vast and deadly. They had crushed entire civilizations under their might, and now they were on their way to Earth, determined to finish what the Vixer had started. The galaxy's most brutal species was about to make its move in. Humanity was ready, or so they thought. Across the galaxy, the response was swift. The Vixer, humiliated by their defeat, sent a warning to all the other empires: do not underestimate humanity. They had already begun to rally their allies, preparing for another assault. The Centauri, who had been keeping an eye on the humans' rise, saw an opportunity. They needed to unite the galaxy under one banner, one that would stand against Earth's growing influence. But as the Centauri approached, other species that had long been oppressed by the galaxy's empires saw something they had never seen before: hope. The humans, small and once defenseless, had taken on the most powerful species in the galaxy and come out victorious. The possibility of defeating the galaxy's tyrants had always seemed impossible, but humanity had shown them it was possible. In secret meetings across the galaxy, representatives from dozens of smaller species began to form a coalition. These species, once powerless and ignored, now saw an opportunity to stand with humanity and bring down the greatest empires in the galaxy. The humans were not just a symbol of survival. They were a beacon of resistance, a force for freedom. Earth's leaders, still cautious of alliances after their struggles with the Andorians, had to decide whether to trust these new allies. The coalition of oppressed species was growing, but trust was a fragile thing. The galaxy had already seen the destruction the great empires could bring. Humanity knew they couldn't win this war alone, but they also knew the risks of placing too much faith in others. The galaxy was a dangerous place, and humanity needed to be careful who they aligned with. Meanwhile, The Centauri were drawing closer. Their fleet was immense, more powerful than anything humanity had faced so far. The Vixer, though humiliated, had not forgotten the lesson humanity had taught them. They were regrouping, planning their next move. The Centauri were not only preparing for war, they were preparing for the total annihilation of humanity. The galaxy's chaos reached a boiling point. The question was no longer whether humanity could survive, it was whether they could unite the galaxy's weaker species against the unstoppable forces of the Vixer and Centauri. Could the oppressed and the outcast civilizations stand together in the face of tyranny? Could humanity lead them into a fight they had no hope of winning? Just weeks before, as the galaxy plunged into turmoil, humanity's warship was being repaired, upgraded, and fortified. The technology that had once been considered scrap was now being transformed into the most formidable weapon in the galaxy. Engineers, scientists, and soldiers worked tirelessly, knowing that their very survival depended on the success of this new phase of the war. Humanity had one chance to prove they belonged in the galaxy, not just as survivors, but as leaders of a new era. But as the humans prepared for the coming storm, they faced an even greater challenge. They were no longer fighting just to survive, they were fighting for the future of the galaxy itself. This wasn't just about Earth. This was about the possibility of a galaxy where the weak no longer had to bow before the strong, where the oppressed could rise against their oppressors. This was humanity's chance to show the galaxy what it meant to fight not just for themselves, but for everyone. As the day of reckoning approached, the humans knew they had no choice but to face the Centauri head-on. The battle would be brutal, they would lose friends, allies, and perhaps even their warship. But the one thing they would not lose was their determination. The galaxy had underestimated them once before, and they would not make that mistake again. The time had come, Earth's forces were ready, the coalition of smaller species was prepared, and humanity was about to make it stand, one that would echo through the stars for generations to come. No longer would the galaxy be dominated by fear and tyranny. The humans had proven they could survive. But now they were going to show the galaxy that they could lead, and they would fight, not just for their own survival but for the future of the galaxy itself. The ultimate showdown. The galaxy was a powder keg, waiting to explode. The Vixer had retreated in shame, but the Centauri's rival had ignited the spark. Their massive fleet, brimming with enough firepower to obliterate entire worlds, loomed in the void of space, advancing toward Earth with calculated precision. Humanity had earned its first victory, but the real test had come, a fight for survival. Not just for Earth, but for the entire galaxy's future. On Earth, the atmosphere was tense, heavy with anticipation. The alliance of smaller species that had joined humanity stood with them, but everyone knew that the odds were still stacked against them. The Centauri had fought wars for centuries. Their empire spread across countless star systems. They knew battle better than anyone, and now they were coming to wipe humanity out of existence. The galaxy would not stand idly by. Every empire that had witnessed humanity's rise now had a stake in the war. The outcome of this final battle would decide the fate of more than just Earth. The humans had fortified their warship. It was now a symbol of their ingenuity and resilience, but it was also their most valuable weapon, and their only hope against the Centauri's overwhelming might. Repairs had been made, new technologies integrated, and advanced defensive systems activated. Humanity was no longer the underdog. They had become a force in the galaxy. But would it be enough? The Centauri were relentless. Their ships, monstrous in size, filled the void, their engines burning with a terrifying intensity. Their warships bristled with weaponry capable of reducing planets to dust. As the two fleets approached, the tension in space grew palpable. The countdown to the most decisive battle the galaxy had ever seen had begun. Humanity's fleet, though smaller, was prepared. The first wave of their warships, built from the wreckage of the Vixer's fleet, moved into position. Each ship was a testament to humanity's ability to take what was broken and make it deadly. The combined fleet of humanity and its allies held their position, determined to show that they could match the Centauri's might. The warship, now repaired and upgraded, was at the heart of their fleet. Its weapons glowed with lethal power, ready to fire. The Centauri commanders, observing the human fleet, laughed in disbelief. They had underestimated humanity once before, but they wouldn't make that mistake again. The thought that such a small, insignificant species could present any real threat to them was laughable. They had crushed entire civilizations without breaking a sweat. Why should humanity be any different? But as the Centauri fleet moved closer, something unexpected happened. The humans, their nerves steeled by the battles they had already fought, were not intimidated. Instead, they opened fire. The first salvo from Earth's warship ripped through the Centauri lines, stunning their commanders. The humans weren't just surviving, they were fighting back, and with fury. The battle erupted with blinding intensity, energy blasts lit up the void, and the space between the fleets became a war zone, with ships darting between explosions. Firing at will, humanity's warship, now fully operational and armed with the most advanced weapons they had developed, was at the heart of the attack. It tore through the Zentauri's fleet with terrifying precision, its weapons cutting through the alien ships like a hot knife through butter. But the Zentauri weren't backing down. They retaliated with a vengeance, firing massive beams of energy at Earth's warships. The sky was filled with fire, with debris from destroyed ships floating in the void. Every moment in the battle was critical. The Zentauri's ships were far more numerous, their firepower superior in many ways, yet humanity fought with determination and strategy that the Zentauri had not anticipated. They adapted quickly to the shifting tide of the battle, using guerrilla tactics to outmaneuver the Zentauri's superior firepower. Each small victory fueled the humans' resolve to continue. As the warship advanced, it became clear that this wasn't just a fight for survival. This was a fight to prove humanity's worth in the galaxy, and with every strike, the humans proved they were more than just a species of scavengers. They were warriors. In the heart of the battle, Commander Lenara Dalen, humanity's top strategist, saw the key to victory. The Zentauri's fleet, though vast and powerful, was beginning to fracture. They had underestimated the adaptability of humanity, and now they were losing their grip. Lenara called for a daring maneuver, an all-out attack on the Zentauri's flagship, the heart of their fleet. If they could cripple the flagship, the Zentauri would lose their command structure and be forced to retreat. The humans launched their final desperate assault. Earth's warship, its hull glowing with power, pushed forward. Breaking through the chaos, the Zentauri flagship loomed ahead, its weapons charging up to deliver a final blow. But humanity's warship was faster, more agile. It dove into the heart of the enemy fleet, breaking through the lines and launching a devastating strike on the flagship. The explosion that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Zentauri flagship, once thought invincible, erupted in a blinding flash. The Zentauri fleet, stunned and thrown into disarray, began to scatter. With their command ship destroyed, their forces were leaderless and confused. The humans, with one final push, decimated the remaining enemy ships. The Zentauri, forced to retreat, fled the battlefield, their fleet in ruins. Humanity had done the impossible. The battle was over. Earth's fleet had survived, and the Zentauri were defeated. The galaxy, which had once looked down upon humanity, would never see them the same way again. The humans had proven that they could stand up to the most powerful empires the galaxy had ever known and win. But as the survivors celebrated their victory, they knew that the war was far from over. The Zentauri may have been defeated, but there were still threats in the galaxy. Humanity had earned its place, but now they had to hold onto it. The galaxy was a dangerous place, and humanity had just made its first mark on the stars. The new dawn's dust settled, and the smoke from the battlefield began to dissipate. The once mighty Zentauri fleet, now nothing more than wreckage floating in the cold expanse of space, was a stark reminder of humanity's strength and resolve. For the first time in history, the galaxy saw Earth not as a vulnerable, insignificant planet, but as a force capable of shaping the future of the stars. Humanity had won. Against all odds, they had defeated the Zentauri, the galaxy's most brutal empire. The warship, built from the scraps of alien technology, had become a symbol of human ingenuity and resilience. It wasn't just a weapon of war, it was a statement. Humanity was here to stay, and no one would push them around again. As Earth's fleet returned home, battered but victorious, there was no time for celebration. The reality of the victory began to sink in. Earth had earned its place in the galaxy, but that place came with immense responsibility. The galaxy was still a dangerous place, filled with empires who had watched humanity's rise with both fear and respect. This battle had shown that Earth was capable of standing toe-to-toe with the greatest powers in the galaxy, but it also painted a target on their backs. The people of Earth were no strangers to hardship. They had endured centuries of war, disease, and suffering, but this victory was different. It was a victory not just for Earth but for every oppressed species in the galaxy, who had longed for the day when the powerful would be brought to justice. In the wake of the battle, other civilizations, once cowering under the rule of the Zentauri and their allies, began to rise. They looked to Earth as a beacon of hope, a symbol of resistance. However, Earth's leaders knew that this newfound position came with challenges they hadn't yet fully grasped. The Zentauri might have been defeated, but there were still other empires that might seek to challenge Earth's place in the galaxy. Humanity had fought to survive, but now they would have to fight to maintain their place in the stars. As the days passed, representatives from different galactic factions began arriving at Earth. Some came in peace, hoping to forge alliances with the new galactic power. Others came with more ominous intentions, hoping to either test or undermine humanity's strength. The Andorians, who had once offered their help, returned to Earth with a proposal for an official alliance, while humanity had learned to be cautious. In their dealings, they also recognized the importance of having allies in such a tumultuous galaxy. With the right alliances, Earth could further secure its place and ensure that their hard-earned victory was not in vain. But, despite the opportunities for alliances, Earth's leaders understood one critical truth: humanity's greatest asset was not their warship or technology, it was their spirit. The galaxy had underestimated humanity before, thinking them weak, fragile, and unworthy of consideration. Now, humanity had proven that no matter how overwhelming the odds, they would stand tall, united in their drive for survival, justice, and peace. In the heart of Earth's capital, where the leaders of the newly formed Galactic Council gathered, a sense of quiet determination filled the air. The galaxy had watched Earth's rise with fascination, but now, it would have to reckon with humanity's newfound power and influence. The question that lingered was no longer whether humanity would survive, but how they would shape the future of the galaxy. The humans, once divided by their own conflicts, now stood united with a singular purpose. Their strength lay not in their weapons or ships, but in their ability to adapt and evolve. The warship, now repaired and upgraded, was no longer just a machine of destruction, it was a symbol of their unyielding will to survive and thrive in the face of overwhelming odds. The galaxy would never forget the day they saw humanity stand against the universe's most powerful empires and emerge victorious. As Earth's leaders addressed the Galactic Council, they spoke not just of peace or alliances, but of a new era. An era where the powerful would no longer trample the weak, and where every species, no matter how small, could have a voice in the galaxy's future. Humanity had made its mark, and it was only the beginning. The war had ended, but the true battle was just beginning. How would Earth use its newfound power? Would it become the protector of the galaxy, or would it seek to lead it? The choices humanity made now would shape the future of the stars for generations to come. And as the first rays of a new dawn broke over Earth's horizon, humanity knew one thing for certain: the galaxy would never again look at them as weak. The universe had learned that no matter the size of the species or the challenges they faced, humanity would always rise, and this time, they would rise as the galaxy's greatest power. The new dawn had arrived, and with it, a future where humanity would write its own story, one where they were no longer the underdogs, but the masters of their fate.